Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the Neighborhood Commission meeting to order. This is Monday, June 26th, 6 p.m. Before we call the roll, I'd like to just go over some of the rules of speaking. Anyone wishing to speak is asked to raise his or her hand. And you can use your raise hand function if you're online. And when you do, you'll be recognized by the chair to address comments to the chair. Speakers are asked to keep their comments under 2 minutes. And I will call on those that do raise their hands on any of the agenda items. Also, please silence all electronic devices. With that, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Shane. Melendres.
Present.
Bernal. Oshiro.
Here.
Tamamoto. Fleck.
Here.
3 presidents, Mark for quorum.
Okay, so we don't have quorum, so if there's any things that need action, we'll have to delay those items until we have quorum, hopefully, as we proceed in the meeting. So we'll start off with agenda item 2, public concerns. Are there any public concerns from anybody in the on the commission or in the audience? I see one hand, Mr. Lai, you have a concern. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few things. I'm certainly sorry that we don't have quorum tonight, but I did want to follow up on something from the April 2023 memorandum for the record. There was mention of a letter being sent to the chairs and vice chairs about the decisions ultimately made by the commission about the meeting minutes policy. And you'll recall specifically there were the exhibits A, B, and C. There was a discussion about how those would be disposed of. And it had been mentioned at a recent neighborhood board meeting that that letter either wasn't available or hadn't been distributed. So I just wanted to follow up from the source to see if that's available. Secondly, I was going to ask if the neighborhood commissioners receive business cards. I'm wondering why it might not be possible to, again, make such cards available to opt in for neighborhood board members as a means to communicate about neighborhood board meetings, provide contact information, and when organizing events out and within the community. Thirdly, I wonder if we could get some feedback from the commission about guidance provided on the NCO website about adoption of social media platforms by individual neighborhood boards. Just wondering if the neighborhood boards override the recommendations on the NCO website about Facebook page creation, specifically to not act first to establish a social media committee, then who assumes the liability for posts on an NCO-vetted neighborhood board-specific Facebook page if so adopted? Can a member opt out or request indemnity in some fashion? And separately, how may members without Facebook pages or Facebook accounts remain able to contribute to said social media pages if that's the case? Concern exists amongst some about not being able to rely on the content or the caliber of what might be posted as part of an individual or a group effort. And lastly, I'd submitted a message or request for an explanation, I guess, to the Commission Office Deputy Secretary about if neighborhood board committees can have only one member. This dealt with retrieval of information and its voting sequence. I think that our neighborhood board might be able to address this at our upcoming meeting next Thursday. But again, it's just disappointing to not have received a direct reply from staff. And I'll leave it from there. I believe that the rest of my questions will be directed during the Executive Secretary's report. Thank you.
Okay, the first one I'll address, and as I understand it, business cards for neighborhood board members, usually the neighborhood assistant will ask members if they wish to receive business cards. So I just wanted to check with Boyd if that's still the case, or is there any change to that practice?
We're looking at that practice right now, partly because of the cost. And one of the challenges we've had is we have printed business cards in the past and they just sit in our office and nobody comes and gets them. So it's almost like, why are we printing something that nobody comes and gets? But in regards to Mr. Lai, yes, it will, we will make a decision on it by by your next term. So, and we'll go from there.
Why do they have to come pick up the cards? Because usually when, I know when you've had
Traditionally, the
distribution of cards, they just, the NA
Then they
brings them to the meetings, gives it to the board
Yeah.
members. So is that also has changed?
Yes, because there was no meetings. There was no in-person meeting, so the person would be virtually, you can't get them, you didn't have the same type of situation before. And then we've asked people to come pick them up and they said they would come and they never came. We also couldn't get them to the board chair because the meetings weren't in person. So you have a situation where it's a hybrid meeting, but nobody's there in person. So getting them the cards was another challenge.
Oh, I see. So that's been your problem.
Yeah, it's been, and we are coming out of the COVID situation and things are, I don't say it's going back to normal, but I think we'll see more meetings where people will be there in person.
Mhm.
That'll be, even if it's hybrid, at least we'll have an opportunity to sit down with the chair or whoever they are and say, here's your mail. We have a ton of mail that comes in, sometimes it's important notifications, but at times it's just somebody's information piece they're passing out. So we are slowly getting back to some kind of regular type of interaction with all of the boards and the chairs. And that's just part of it right now.
Can you let the commission know
Yeah,
what your recommendation will be for the
Right.
board? So at least we're aware if you stop doing that or if you continue.
yeah.
And the other concerns that Mr. Lai had, can you address any of them?
Yeah, Kevin, I apologize. I don't quite know. I think it was the question about the meeting minutes. I think it was a letter that should go out, but the commission was pretty clear and in terms of not moving forward on the proposal position on the minutes. So I will get you work on a letter. And I'm assuming that letter is to identify the position of the commission in terms of minutes. Is that what we're asking about?
If I may, from that meeting back in April, I'm not sure if you were there for that meeting, but concern was raised by one of the commissioners about the exhibits themselves and how they were being interpreted, and perhaps it was to explain something about that. It may require going back to the recording, but again, there was some information that was going to be distributed after that.
And this is the policy on the minutes?
It was regarding the policy that was proposed and then several of the responses that came back from the community.
Okay.
And I think that's what the exhibits A, B, and C were all about.
Well, first of all, okay, I can draft an explanation of that policy and the different segments of it. But I would like you to know that the commission has decided not to move forward with that policy. And in that case, it is not a policy that's going to go in effect. At the same time, I think you, Kevin, know probably more than anybody else that that entire policy, there's only one part of it that was fairly new, and that was the timestamp for the meeting minutes. The rest of it is just what is in law. It is the law as it exists in terms of who is ultimately responsible for the minutes. What was also in there was what is standard practice, which is the 3-hour limit. And I made there is an error in the 3-hour limit for meetings because it should not include setup and takedown. But other than that, there was nothing that was not already being done currently. But I'll give you, let me draft a letter and I can explain I can go down section by section.
Or would we just have to cite action taken by the commission in terms of not going forward with it? Because basically that was it. So the policy,
Yeah, the
you know,
policy
not,
is nailed.
it's not going anywhere. So if we cite the action that the commission took, that policy did not go forward, period. That's my understanding.
Right. anyway, if the policy is not in effect because it was not adopted, the proposed policy. With regards to your Facebook questions, we do not, and I don't believe ever had a policy on Facebook or social media, as far as I know. So at some point, I think we would have to develop it. I have no idea how we would begin to create that, other than maybe the commission setting up a committee, or even neighborhood commission office taking the lead on that, to put together a group that we can have a discussion on the Facebook policy or social media policy.
Chair, if I may, there is guidance on the neighborhood commission office rep or resources page, which does describe a process recommended for neighborhood boards. And I'd also received information from neighborhood commission office about needing to approve a Facebook page by a 2/3 vote by an individual board. So there's a little bit of amorphousness out there, but again, there is a resource on the resource page. It's a PowerPoint deck from like 2014, updated recently as earlier this year. So it seems that there was some sort of action on that. I just wanted to follow up.
Okay, yeah, let me review that. I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment about that. I think we have to be very careful. Where it's not at a board level, this is a commission. I think we have to take a lead from whatever the city and county of Honolulu is doing regarding policies regarding social media and however they want to handle the digital world. I mean, it's good to have exposure. But along with exposure comes with some shortcomings and privacy issues. So I think we have to be very careful about that. And I think it has to be a city and county policy straight across the board. It cannot be something that we go off by ourselves. I mean, that's just my take on it, Kevin.
Do you know if the city has one? Social media policy?
I don't know.
Okay, that's likely one we can take a look at if there is something or not, or if it's something we should consider putting on the agenda for a future meeting.
We have had discussion in the past on that.
Sure.
And it's been used in the past to supplement the neighborhood boards, especially concerning the cultural aspects of what's going on in the communities themselves. But there's not been a policy actually defined. I agree we should follow whatever the county's doing. In the survey that I have, that's one item we could address, because we're going to be addressing the neighborhood plan.
Well,
We can create a pig for that.
yeah, I think the social media policy is something that, yeah, we have to follow what the city's after. But if I create a social media page and then related to my work, and then I put only my stuff on there, and it becomes a venue for people to say, okay, that's the neighborhood board website, but it's not. I think it is a challenge, because you run into free speech, privacy issues. Yes, yeah, I mean, there's a number of issues. So, it's a good question, and let me go check the city policy, what the city has. Yeah,
We're ready
And
for
the
that. We
state.
could start a pig.
Well,
Be a good project.
well,
I don't want us to go off independently. I'd
Yeah.
like to hear what the city's policy, if there
I
is.
think
one.
let's-
Exactly.
let's do that. I'll report either prior to, and I'll distribute to all and everybody, or at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think always the concern with things like that is, as we know, minutes are the official record of what goes on at the neighborhood board meetings.
Right.
So with any kind of social media, a lot of times, as you say, it's First Amendment, people put up whatever they want. There's no review or concurrence from neighborhood boards. So I think that may be the concern in general. But in any case, maybe that is something that we can have
In the
further discussion in the future.
Right. We,
Okay.
just to cap it off, there was an area before for the neighborhood boards of concern in that area, and to start then board controls, and it's under the board jurisdiction, to create a social media presence to supplement what they're doing. And that also would help to aid in the emergency plan, because the emergency plan is all local. And we've talked to the county before about the emergency plan and sustainability. Then that's something we can put into the pig, and we can vent that out with what the county has established so far, and then go from there. But there's areas that really doesn't need to be addressed. So we'll vent it out. Thank you.
Larry has to-
Yeah, I see one more hand. Larry, Larry, Go ahead.
Chair O'Shea and the commissioners, yes, I strongly support getting together and doing some homework with the city to find out what we can do, what we can't do. I think with the social media, we have to be very careful, especially with board members. You know, we have future agenda items. I think what it is that there starts to be cross communication, collaboration with the residents. The board talk about those subjects prior to the board meeting. But I really think that this will evolve into a new paragraph in the neighborhood plan. That's where it really needs to go to provide that guidance and policy. That's all I have for input.
okay, thanks, Larry. I don't see any more hands, so I think we can move on to the next item on our agenda, approval of minutes. We'll have to wait to see if we can get,
We now have one.
We're not.
We got 4 here plus my AI online.
or is she online?
Yeah,
Bottom
it's right there.
Oh, okay, great. We have quorum, so we can move on the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes from August 22nd, 2022, which we didn't approve. And last commission meeting, May 22nd, 2023. So do we have motions to approve either or both of those sets of minutes?
Or Chair, first, let's do public testimony, if anyone had anything in common.
I see one hand, so I can call on Mr. Lai. Go ahead. We're about to
Thank you, Chair.
approve the minutes.
Thank you. Regarding the minutes for 22 August 2022, I'm posting into the chat a couple of suggestions. First, you'll note that as of 6:06 p.m. on that day, 4 commissioners are noted as being present, after which Commissioner Tamamoto appears. And then the record immediately indicates the presence of 6 members. I'm just wondering who is the 6th member. And secondly, within the period of public concerns, I've pasting into the chat a from to change within the concerns that were transcribed that evening, which basically better characterizes the comments that were made, the concerns that I had raised, and providing for the public a record of what was of concern that evening so that we can hopefully address these issues sooner or later. Lastly, there appears to be a missing word in the actual approval of minutes section of those minutes themselves, which the word minutes should be inserted after the number 2022 on line 2. And then finally, there appears to be an extraneous semicolon at the end of the document itself. So those are the recommendations I would ask that the commissioners consider for adoption. If the chat is not available to read on screen or shared in the room, for those who are in the conference room, I'm happy to read or reread any of these items.
Dylan, who was here before?
Questions on the
There are
minutes?
People online. On that meeting.
For that meeting, if you give me a let me
Yeah.
pull up the actual minutes. I did not draft those myself. I don't believe I was with the commission at the time. Sorry, commission.
August of 22.
Yeah, they just fell through. Two, three. It appears that there's a typo, because at most we have 5.
22?
So right here, it'll say Kawamoto entered the meeting at 6:07, 6 members present. Quorum was established.
So form is 5, right?
It should say 5.
Right.
And then right here, this part is correct. It says quorum was not established with 4 because of the call to order. There was only 4. We need 5 for the commission. So this 6 needs to be changed to 5.
5, but we still have 4, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
everything, yeah, was
Right.
appropriate, just a typo right there.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to here.
I will change that. This is very. But that, oh, he's saying in that public concerns.
Yes. Also, he wanted it changed from this. So this was the written, and he wants it changed to this. Sorry. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Is it making a material difference? Is it introducing something new to the agenda? That wasn't,
The old minutes.
no, if his change is introducing something new, it wasn't present at the time, then it shouldn't be considered.
I would say like the use of the neighborhood plan, the specific sections and subsections, that's what it came down to.
Okay.
At first glance, I would say this is the general summary of what happened. Where we talk about commission meetings on Alelo, showing conference of chairs material, complaint process, updates, to him citing the exact part of the plan that says this was violated, this and that. That's the main difference. It's in more detail.
If it's adding detail that was summarized, that's okay.
Well, the other good thing is that now the meetings will be on video, so I take it the chat will also be on video.
No.
No?
Chat is
The
not.
chat's not really official, like a lot of people don't use it properly.
Right, it's not efficient.
So, because if people like decide to go off in the chat.
Yeah.
then
Well,
it's-
I'll leave it to the
That's true.
commissioners for what you suggest in terms of approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
On August 22?
Yeah, we'll do it one by one.
Okay, August.
I think that, well, we corrected the roll call part. I mean, I think the part about various concerns. I think there, in the video, it would be documented what the various, but we didn't take up, I mean, we heard the various concerns, but we didn't take any action on those various concerns.
Yeah, that fell under public concerns,
Right, and so,
but the minutes that we just prepared, the draft, they're a summary and not a direct transcription.
Right.
So what he provided in the comments that you see up here
is it,
is definitely in detail, and he probably said all of that. I'm not positive, I wasn't at that meeting. But the summary is what was proposed in the draft minutes.
If it's already captured in the video, then it'd be acceptable. If we're just delineating what's already there.
So if I understand the motion is to
who wants to add it?
accept the minutes with the correction to the number that was from 6 to 5.
Yeah, we do not actually have a motion right now. If anyone wanted to make a motion.
I so move.
To correct the roll call, that part about 6
Sure.
to 5, yeah, to reflect what actually happened.
I second.
Okay, the August 22nd, 2022 meeting minutes, it's been moved and seconded as amended. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? None. The minutes for August 22nd, 2022 have been approved as corrected. So we're going to move on to the May 22nd, 2023 meeting minutes.
Yeah, I didn't attend that, so I can't.
We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I wasn't here.
For April.
I had an EC meeting.
Sure, can I ask something? Did everyone see that new version?
What new version?
So this is where we incorporated the timestamps in the YouTube video.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
the time.
Yeah.
Good,
Enjoy it? Okay.
Great.
Okay,
thank you.
no problem.
Okay, before we accept it, I see a hand. Is it Mr. Lai's hand up again?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Lai.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just kind of disappointed at first that the commission didn't insert the missing word minutes in the previous approval of minutes section for the previous minutes. It's a bit confusing, but I understand. And then there was the extra semicolon at the end of the document. But speaking to the agenda item at hand, the May 2023 memorandum of record, I'll just note that in the guests section, the final sentence appears to read there are 15 total attendees, name not included if not legible on sign-in sheet, not signed in, and or not participated in discussion. So this leaves for a bit of an issue, because what if an attendee was signed in on the WebEx, their name is fully present, but they did not comment or participate in any discussion? Were any such names listed or present at the meeting but not listed because the provided language leaves room for the record keeper to omit names without any sort of consequence? There is some language that we've attempted to adopt in similar situations for our neighborhood board. It would be such as follows. Names were not included if not recognized or not legible on the sign-in sheet. There were as many as XX unique attendees. And that kind of compels the record keepers to make all efforts to capture all names, even if they were not participating in the discussion. Thank you. I'll admit that.
Just
Dale?
information. Yeah, so it says name not included if not legible on sign-in sheet, comma, not signed in and or not participated in discussion. So by that, I think it just means if someone were to come in person here and sit down and not sign in and not sign, sorry, someone comes in person, they never spoke and they never signed in, I don't know who they are. So it's just a small clause at the very end. We're not admitting it.
The signing is whoever signs in, that's who you're gonna record.
Yeah.
Somebody slips in, slips out. If you don't see them and you don't know who they are, then you won't really know what to put down. Similarly, for those that are online, I take it they all have to sign in, because we don't know who some of the folks are that are signed in because there are no names on the screen. So, but do you have the names of everybody that's on the screen?
So everyone that's on here, yes, I can go into the data after and see that.
Or
This one
is there a
says
way you
anonymous.
can put the names up on the screen? So who?
Oh, no, I cannot edit someone else's. I
Can we ask them to put their names on? Because they can, right?
Yeah, but
They
if,
can edit their name.
No, they can put their names on the screen.
yeah, but if they're
And they
asking
don't
to
do
be
that.
anonymous,
Yeah, so we have one person here that is actually anonymous.
she's asking.
Well,
I can't do anything about that. But
Yeah,
if
that's
the
what I
name-
mean. If you don't have the
I'm just
name, you
reporting
can't
that as
record.
one extra participant in this meeting.
But you
If
don't
there
know
were
who it is.
14 without that person, I'm gonna say there were 15 people here because that person is here. There's someone here.
Yeah,
That's all I think Mr. Lyon's bringing up. He's a little worried about it.
Okay, so your comment, Dylan, is to say that the comment here that your name not included, is just a standard, it's not reflective of necessarily that meeting, but that's just a standard comment you're putting as, that's what will happen.
Because of the
Right.
example like this right here.
Right,
I
but,
don't know who that person is. I'm not gonna write anonymous.
right, but it's not to say that, this is the situation in this minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And maybe I counted wrong, but I don't count as many as you count. I only count 14, sorry.
Oh,
we have
so-
a motion,
Yeah, I
regarding
think on that
approval
one,
of the
I
minutes.
just have to take my word on that because in this case, we have the participant labeled anonymous.
Okay,
No one else here is taking roll call or knowing that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other people besides ourselves on here, plus the few that are in the room here. I add those together. And that's how I get my total participants. So you might not see 15 names, but there were people logged in with maybe just a first name. I'm not going to put a first name or just a last name. We do full names.
and then you have to make sure that you're not double counting Kevin,
Yeah.
because he's hooked up on the line.
Correct.
I think your statement, Dylan, is just disclosure. And that's fine.
So I'll see.
It's not material, it's just disclosure, that's fine.
Kevin's had-
Okay, do we have a motion
I so move.
to approve the minutes?
I wasn't here, so I wasn't here. So somebody else just a second.
Second,
It's all set,
I second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve the minutes for, May 22nd, 2023, no amendments. So, all those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Opposed? Abstentions, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is new business. And we need the commission received a letter from the executive.
Executive,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry,
you left out.
you were,
Yeah, I was.
Wow.
sorry.
Executive secretary,
Item 4, executive secretary's report. Sorry, I missed that.
probably.
Should it? So it's an important item. So I'll just turn it over to Lloyd and he can go over the installation ceremony and the
Any public,
neighborhood board
I
elections.
think we have public, testimony.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I see that. We'll get to that. But that's the next item on the agenda. So, Lloyd, can we just start with your report and then I'll ask for public
Two things,
questions and comments?
installation ceremony, this Saturday, July 1st at the Philcom Center, Filipino Community Center. Hope you have a chance to make it all. This is the new board members for the coming year, coming 2 years. Everything is going well with that. The second item is the 2023 neighborhood board election update. I just wanted to use this time to just cover the fact that what was in the news in terms of a revote in the Hawaii Kai Sub-District 11. And I just wanted the commission to know that there was a glitch that didn't allow people to register their votes. That glitch, when it was reported, about a week had gone, almost a week had gone by already. It encompassed a weekend. DIT, our information tech people, fixed that thing immediately. And from then on, for the next 2 weeks, people were allowed to vote. It was registered, so it was fixed. The challenge was there were some people that tried to vote in the beginning that because they couldn't, they stopped trying. So in terms of what would be the best thing to do and to be as fair as possible to everybody, so we're just going to revote that sub-district 11, which is what is happening now. During that election, there also, we had, for that particular sub-district, we had 3 requests for paper ballots. And we're not doing paper ballots, we're doing all electronic. But what we are doing is we are having a presence in the community. In fact, they're there today. I think today was the first day. We'll be at the park right at the beginning of that sub-district. So we'll have a presence there physically. So if people want to come and vote, they can just come right there and vote. But I think the whole idea is we had an issue, we solved it, but there were some people who didn't come back and vote, and we can see this on our spreadsheets. In fact, we can see where someone tried to vote 6 or 7 times, they couldn't get in, but it was a glitch. It was only a glitch in that sub-district. Everybody else did not have any problems. Although I do want to make one comment that we did have an issue in a Waikiki sub-district, but it was a self-imposed issue. And what happened was there was a contested race, and then one person dropped out, but they dropped out, the ballots had already gone out. So what we did, because it became uncontested, there was no need to vote. So people in that sub-district, if they tried to vote, it wouldn't record anything. And it was simply because there was nothing to vote for. That person was going to be elected no matter what. So other than that, we had no issues that we can tell. We looked at all the data we looked for. When we see the data on people voting, we can see where people tried to vote and if they were successful or not. We can also see when someone did not put in the proper passcode or PIN number. And we have a slew of those where they just put in the wrong, number, or it was incorrect. But other than that, the election went smoothly, and unfortunately, one of the challenges of this election has been the fact that we had so many uncontested races. 60% plus of the races were uncontested. I think it's just a challenge going into the next election, is trying to get people to run. So other than that, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So the Hawaii Kai sub-district, the closing date and the date that you will announce the results,
We will probably,
The closing.
the closing date is July 7th, and it's midnight, July 7th. In all likelihood, we won't announce the winner. We'll see if we can announce it the next day. The problem is that it closes at 11:59 that night, and that's a Friday, so,
And there's a weekend, yeah.
and it's a weekend, so,
Monday.
yeah, in all likelihood, it'll be Monday. I'm gonna see if they're willing to, willing to work on Saturday, but.
Were you able to contact that civil beat reporter that called me about this matter? I think you said she emailed you. I didn't respond to her because I waited.
Yeah, what we did was, yeah, I didn't respond to her because at that time, we didn't have all the information.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges on anything like this is you really don't want to go out with something until you know everything.
Right.
As much as possible, that we did our due diligence and looked at the data and found where some of the issues were. The news release that went out after all of this had everything they wanted to know.
Okay,
And we actually had no calls after the news release went out
okay,
because it identified what the problem was, when it happened, what was the fact it was fixed right away, but some people couldn't vote, never did vote. So we're going to go back and redo that election for that sub-district only. So basically, we identified the problem, say this is what it was, tried our best, but we're going to re-vote. That would be the best thing to do. I informed both people involved, and we let all the boards know, all the board chairs know, so.
So how did we get the word out of the revolt?
It went out in a press release, and what we did was we sent, new passcodes same passcodes, new PIN numbers, or one of them is new. We sent the ballot out again to everybody in that sub-district. So that's how they were notified, along with the fact that, it's been talked about, so, and the board knows about it. So, yeah, we contacted everybody with and explained we have to do a revote.
Okay.
do we know what the cost of that revote is? Or is that not a question to ask?
No, it's actually a good question to ask. It actually is costing us very little. And it's because the vote itself, the election, is operated by our own tech guys. So there's no added cost for that. We usually use a vendor to get all that information out, the voting ballots and everything. We didn't use it, we did it ourselves. So we just took the list that we would normally give to the vendor and we just printed it ourselves.
I
So
think,
it really didn't cost us, which I'm very glad.
Anything else from the commissioners? If not, I see a hand up on this agenda item, Mr. Lai.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just wanted to yield if there's anybody else from the public who would like to speak first. I'm happy to yield.
There are none.
No.
Thank you.
Bob is,
Oh, okay, wait. I called Mr. Lai, he can go ahead. And then I'll go
Okay,
to the
thank-
next one. I see his hand, so I didn't see call him next. I'll call him next.
All right, thank you, Chair. I know it's been a busy month or two, but I do still hope to hear from Executive Secretary Yonanaka after our telephone call on the 22nd of May, 2023, documented in the memorandum just approved from May. Here's a subset of concerns raised for the record since we weren't able to insert them into the amended minutes from past. Number one, I'm seeking clarification regarding neighborhood plan 214-115B relating to self-recusal of board members and the ability to vote thereafter. This has been submitted as a formal inquiry to the commission on the 5th of March, 2023, as per neighborhood plan 211-104. Hopefully this gets routed to the right place. Number two, the neighborhood commission has not addressed requests for review of actions taken which bypassed neighborhood plan 218-103-D10 subsection C back in 2022 with multiple formal requests to the commission for explanations submitted as per neighborhood plan 211-401A subsection 1. I'm trying to play by the rules, and I hope that the commission and its affiliates will also play by the rules. Third, I'm seeking clarification of the parameters for the NCO's announcements about each neighborhood board to spend up to $1,000. But I'm going to stop myself here and say that I do appreciate comments by the executive secretary earlier that he would consider investigating the possibility of permitting neighborhood board members to request to opt in to receiving business cards or name cards. I think these are definitely worthwhile and cost-efficient means for community outreach. It was my hope that a small portion of the $1,000 that were allocated to each of the neighborhood boards for community outreach could have been allocated for those neighborhood board members who were interested in receiving those business cards. Now, again, we know that such requests, a subset of those above, are technically made to the commission and then may be farmed out to the commission office in general and the executive secretary in particular. But how does the commission continue to justify its inaction and ignore the duly filed requests for explanations of such matters and these questions? These are timely filed as required by the neighborhood plan. And it may hurt to say it, but it remains outrageous how the commission can continue to simply stonewall and ignore legitimate requests to address these questions, despite it being the stated and sworn duty of the commission to do so. And I say this not for me, but for anybody else who may have questions down the line about any decisions that are made by the commission. If we can't rely on the commission being able to follow the neighborhood plan to answer these questions, if we follow the rules, jump through the hoops, then it really, really decreases the public belief and faith in the ability of the neighborhood commission to follow the neighborhood plan. And I hope that we can find a way to address that. I have one more question, but I'll save it for the committee report about elections, unless the chair would allow me to present it here, as we were just speaking about the elections in the executive secretary's report.
Yeah, we're on new business. I'm sorry, the executive secretary's report. But before we proceed with further questions, Lloyd, are you familiar with what Mr. Lai is referring to when he says he sent all of these communications? And I mean, we don't see all these communications, so are they on file, and do they require responses based on what he has said tonight?
Yeah, I will review. I am aware of them. The one I'm aware of more than anything else is a recusal, but I'm not quite sure if it was addressed to the
Yeah,
commission.
because if there are written requests or questions, then
I will get that to you.
if we can respond, then we
Yeah.
won't have this kind of issue
Right.
to deal with. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Armstrong, I saw your hand next. You can go ahead. You have
Thank
the
you.
floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Armstrong, come up here. You can take a seat over here. Just gonna flip this kind of a little bit forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions for the Executive Secretary. Number one, could you relate the impact of the reporter's story on the Hawaii Kai elections to the result of us having another sub-district election there? Did it have any effect? Did it have no effect? And then finally, the second question is, could you tell me the percentage of responses that you've gotten for Saturday's meeting at the Philcom Center and how that augurs with previous responses at Mission Memorial? Thank you.
First of all,
One second, boss. I just want to make sure you get clear out of that.
First of all, Mr. Armstrong, I'm not here to answer questions. I'm here to work with the commission and respond to their questions. If you have a question, you can call me anytime. In regards to,
public would like to know.
yeah, and that's fine, but in terms of the reporter, I don't know what you're talking about. You're asking I'm not gonna get into what I think about the reporter or what the report does. Right now, as far as the response to the inauguration, we probably have about 100 responses saying, yes, they're coming. We have about 20 or 30 that say they're not. The rest have not responded. I wouldn't say it's similar, but it's fairly similar to the previous. But again, I'm not here to debate, discuss, or answer questions. I am here to respond to anything that the commission, because this is a commission meeting. This is not an open forum. This is not a neighborhood board forum where it's question and answer, question and answer, question and answer. But That is the
You
responsibility.
you have an absolute responsibility to the public.
To you,
To
to
the
you.
public.
Yeah,
Of which I'm a member.
right. And I am talking about this, but this meeting is a commission meeting. It is not an open forum for discussion. It is not. Okay,
I think that with regard to the Waikiki sub-district election, I think I read the article, there was one article that I recall seeing, and they reported problems with that election. So I think the response from the commission was the recommendation to do a revote, and that's what's going on right now. So that's the resolution to any problems that were reported in the newspaper article or the civil beat article, as I recall.
the media
In
had,
regard to the swearing in, I think Mr. Noninaka answered that. So if you want to see what the turnout is, I invite you to go to the installation. Okay, anything else? Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, before we do this. Do
Uh,
we have any, I'm
Commissioner-
sorry,
Commissioner.
because you provoked my memory, we're always refer back to how it was before COVID. Before COVID, we were mission building, which was great. Do we happen to know what the numbers were in the installation before COVID? Do we have any visibility on that?
before
Yeah.
COVID, you know, I
At the
don't,
mission building, because it was a great turnout.
yeah,
Fabulous turnout.
right. I don't know the numbers. It was, yeah, I don't have the numbers.
So I have a couple comments. The first one, I'm sorry, is to Kevin Lai regarding, oh, now I forgot. I'm getting old. Kevin, you talked about the $1,000 amount of money allocated, and I would think that each neighborhood board has it in their purview to allocate that $1,000 the way they want. So I think if your board prefers to do it in a certain way, then that's something that's a board matter, rather than having whatever else you want, whatever else spent on. And then regarding Mr. Armstrong's comment, although Lloyd says that it's not a question and answer thing, I would like to share, since she did call me, and I have it written down on my ink blotter what her name is, I'm sorry. But by the time I called, and I called immediately, the executive secretary, he was already working on it. And, you know, it was not something, this was before it hit the press or anything. This is her calling me and asking me if I, you know, knew anything about it. And I was able to call Lloyd, the executive secretary, right after her call. And he was already aware of the issue and he was working on it, investigating. So I don't think whatever the civil beat article was, I didn't follow up there. I just know that initial contact was made and that he was already aware of the problem. So
May I respond?
I guess.
I appreciate your answer, and I believe in the spirit of what you just provided. I mean, but the issue is, and really is the bottom line of that article, is the transparency of the neighborhood commission office and how the elections are run. And Lloyd's deflection of my question speaks to an opportunity that he could have had to set the record straight, and he chose not to do that. But I appreciate what you said.
Again, Lloyd, let me respond to that. I mean, prior to even the elections, I think the issue is, and Larry, you were on the meeting before that, the issue is a lack of trust.
Absolutely.
And to me, there is no reason for that lack of trust. You either look at an issue as half empty, or the cup is half empty or half full. I think the people, we've said over and over, the people that dedicate their time, like you folks to working in public service, don't do it for fame and glory, you know? So I think it's a matter of everybody does the best they can to their ability. I think there was a feeling that there was a cloud over the elections, and we're going, how could that be? People wanted to help us count the votes, you know, all this, and we don't have that many votes to count, you know, and so I think the base of it, of all of this stuff, is really the lack of trust. And I think if we get off of that and realize we're all going in the same direction, we could work better together, is my only comment.
Okay,
Sorry.
let me just, for the record, your question really was about what impact that media story had. And I want to tell you, it had no impact. And the reason it had no impact is because when we got the information that there was a problem, at that point, the question is, what is the problem? Why did it happen? What are we going to do? It had nothing to do with the media. And I say that because that is the truth. My concern at that point wasn't what they were going to write. My concern at that point was what happened? Why did it happen? And what are we going to do about it? And it takes, trust me, it took, I was as frustrated as anybody because I couldn't get answers right away. I couldn't what is the deal? And the issue is I needed to be right. I needed to understand what happened, why it happened, and also be able to say what we're going to do with the understanding, can we do that? So it's easy to say this is what we're going to do, but if it's not possible, then it makes me look stupid. So what I want to do then at that point is make sure everything is lined up. Because when I come back and I talk about this issue, I need to tell people, this is what happened. This is when we found out. This is when DIT knew about it. This is when it was corrected. And this is what we're going to do going forward. And that cannot happen in a day or two. So I can tell you, it did not have, and I understand media, but it did not have an impact. What had an impact was something went wrong. And I need to be able to identify what it is, what was the fix, when was it fixed, and what are we going to do going forward.
But as you know, that wasn't the only problem that happened with the elections, because I and two other people were here to physically
Yes.
watch the physical ballots being opened. And
I
after
understand.
2.5 hours,
Bob,
there
I don't
were
want-
no response, there was no answer.
Because
And then a day later, there was no answer. Again, you need to be transparent, and you need to say, I don't know. Or here's a thought. How about setting the city on fire because this is an election and it was 2 weeks from the vote that we were supposed to count and it still wasn't
Bob,
completed?
I appreciate
That's
your
called-
comment. Thank
that's
you.
called response.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate your comments.
One more comment, sorry. You raised the fact about the installation service, event being at the Philcom as opposed to the Mission Memorial. And granted, yes, I've been at the ones that are at the Mission Memorial and they're full, granted. But there's also a concern that if we want to engage people on the west side of the island, that is it's hard for them to come and to park. And I think sometimes we forget that there is another half of the island and that we need to make an effort to reach out to them. And so I am glad that we're doing it at Philcom, and we can evaluate it, or we can do one here and one there next year, whatever, just so that you don't ignore the west side of the island. A lot of times, everything is focused on downtown and that way. You know, it's just because that downtown and that way tends to be more vocal, doesn't mean that I consider I am being country, the other side, on the west side, doesn't have opinions or aren't valid or, citizen. So
Okay, are we done with this?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. I see one more hand. Larry, you have a question? Hooray.
As a neighborhood,
we can hear you, Larry.
Can't hear you, Larry.
He just muted himself. Larry, your audio got really soft. You were strong in the beginning when you spoke about 20 minutes ago, and then
Yep.
something went wrong.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. They had the audio problems from last time I was on. But anyway, as a neighborhood board chair, I just want to put my input here to the chair and to the commission and also to the yes. We got to stop dwelling on negatives, okay? We got through this election, yes, and I'll tell you, there was a lot of concern, but plus the information that went out in the press. But Lloyd, as you're going through this, there's a lot of stress over this. Bottom line, you did the right thing. Yes, there was an issue with Hawaii Kai. The bottom line of that is you're doing it right, and people of Hawaii Kai, the board there, should be happy with the results afterwards. There might be a few changes. The other thing, I totally agree with Claire. It's the people that will show up is a direct reflection of the neighborhood board chairs. If you do not have your board members show up and you didn't talk with all of them and ask, what reasons they got, because some people they work on weekends, they've got their families and all that stuff, but The good news is they'll get sworn in next time. But we still need the neighborhood boards, chairs to reach out to the boards and show a good showing. The mayor is going to be there. Hopefully, all the commissioners will be there. Because I'll be honest with you, over the years, I had my disappointments. Once every 2 years, every commissioner should be in that room looking at everybody. But anyway, I just want to put my 2 cents.
Good.
Okay, thank you. I see no more hands, so I'm gonna move on to new business. We received a letter from the Waipahu Neighborhood Board requesting to make all of their seats at large to ease the difficulty they've been having in filling vacancies. So I'd like to ask if there are any questions about that. The way this would work would be if we allow this to happen, all of the seats that are currently vacant would be at large. Any future vacancies would be considered at large. For those that were elected by sub-district in this past election, will retain that seat. So if there are any future vacancies in those sub-districts, then they will be at large. So basically, nothing changes for the people that are currently on the board or that were elected in this past election.
And am I right to say that the people that are currently elected or have been elected were on the board and are to fill those spots are in agreement that they're okay with?
Yeah, this action to ask the commission to make all the seats at large was voted on by the neighborhood board at their last meeting, and the vote was unanimous in terms of in favor of doing this.
I move that we honor the request of the Waipahu Neighborhood Board number 22 and make all their seats at large as outlined in the plan that Richard Oshiro has just shared with us, that all vacant seats, current vacant seats will be at large. Any vacant seats that come to pass within this elected term will be at large, and the current people that were elected will remain and hold their seats in the sub-districts.
Right. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. The motion has been moved and seconded. Take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. All ayes. So thank you very much. Who informed the Waipahu board that we took this action. So they're going to be on board on this. Thank you very much. I don't see any hands. We're going to move on to committee reports. Elections committee, we've not had any meetings, and I think we've had a lot of discussion already on this past election, so I'll move on from there. Survey committee, I know Steven had a proposal to do a survey. So Steven, can we do this? Because I don't know if the commissioners had a chance to review them. So maybe what we can do is take a look at it at our next meeting. Maybe we can put it on the agenda outside of the report, so we can discuss it specifically, and then we'll address the survey that you prepared. Spent a lot of time, I can tell, by doing that. So that'll give everybody a chance to review them, and then we can discuss it at the next meeting. And if you have any questions, and we can ask you, and
You can have a comment.
sure.
Yes, we can do that.
Is that okay? All right.
This is just to preview, the survey is going to be for the commission and for board members. And what we'll do, like we talked about before, is that we will, I'm sorry, I didn't staple. Let's pass them around. Is that we're going to take the information, the survey information, and use that, as we talked about, to help them implement, go into the neighborhood plan. And Mr. Armstrong, you testified at my neighborhood board, Midline Mountain. We heard you. And so this part of the survey is going to be, what do you think needs to get done in the neighborhood plan? Okay, we're going to develop rubrics from this, go on the information, and then let's sort it out and see what we can do. Okay, it's out, and then once it's filtered, the commission will, the neighborhood plan committee will deal with it. And then output those recommendations, as we've done in the past, to, once we have concurrence internally, to the boards. And then say, here, tell me what you think. Because we don't do things in the vacuum. Or we always get concurrence. And so we don't, no one likes surprises. So then what's implemented will be according to existing policies and procedures. It'll be good. Well, thank you for your comments. You were well spoken tonight. Thank you. Okay, and then, so I'm just gonna put this in, I'm just gonna defer this for now. For Cheryl, that'll be fine.
And I think that we can give it fuller discussion.
Fine, perfect.
Okay, I see one hand up. Mr. Lai, you had a question?
Thank you, Chair. My hand was raised prior to the section for Elections Committee. If I might backtrack and pose a question that I deferred from the Executive Secretary's report. It's rather brief, if I may. I'll proceed. Thank you. Commissioners, I'm just wondering, again, I was one of the attendees who observed the voting ballot opening process. Yes, there were some computer glitches. I think we understand about that. I'm just wondering, though, after the observers left, there was a stack, I believe, of 256 certified paper ballots, of which 252, I believe, were going to be scanned. I'm just wondering if those were all scanned without incident, or if the computer system spit out any errors or overvoting or any other issues with that. I thought that report may have been made readily available. And if it's already on the NCO website, I do apologize for not having seen it already. Relatedly, with the concerns about the election itself, I know that, for example, being a neighborhood assistant is clearly a very intensive and time-intensive job, and the ones that we've had for our board have worked very hard. I just wonder if the stress, if you will, of being both an elected board member and also working for or serving up to 4 other neighborhood boards might sometimes be a bit much. I know that I, for one, would hope that our neighborhood assistant would be able to continue the work that's being done and work hard and do as great a job as possible. I only mention this because of the concern. I believe that there was in the preliminary transcript of our most recent set of meeting minutes, it looked like virtually the same text was copied from the previous month's section to the most recent month's section for a particular elected official. And listen, I've made errors similar in the past. I just raise this point just to hope that if neighborhood assistants are elected, that they will continue to provide for their neighborhood boards for which they are working and doing transcriptions and other things, that there will be no diminution rather of quality in their output. And I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Respond?
Thank you, Kevin.
You had a question?
Oh,
252.
yeah, just regarding the ballots, all the ballots were scanned. The challenge wasn't the scanning. The challenge was once it was scanned, we weren't able to upload it to the election site. That was the challenge. Eventually that got fixed, but it was already recorded within our computer. So it was just a question of uploading. That was the issue. And that was resolved the next day, the afternoon.
Okay, but there were no errors from those validated ballots.
No,
Thank
none.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Neighborhood Plan Committee, there has been no meeting, so, that's something that will be upcoming, and, if there are, I know the survey, we dovetail with what they're planning and intending to do with their survey into the Neighborhood Plan Committee, and I believe we'll have additional members that may be interested in serving on that, because there's going to be a lot of work on that committee. So with that, move to announcements. Next meeting of the commission is scheduled for July 24th, same time, 6 p.m. here at Kapala Mahali. And the other thing is, for all those that have been elected to the neighborhood board and also the commissioners. Hopefully we'll see all of you at the installation ceremony this Saturday, coming Saturday, July 1st at the Philcom Center.
Yes.
Are there any other announcements?
Mr. Chair.
You have an announcement?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to make this commission aware of the island-wide, connects with your previous statement, Mr. Melendez, of an island-wide meeting that reviews the neighborhood board system that is planned on August 19th at 1 p.m. at 1152 Smith Street. In case you're worried about parking, there's a city garage right behind off of Baratania building. This is the old Channel 14 building. It is now a New Life Center at 1152 Smith Street. And again, the reason for this meeting is the entire island is invited, not just board chairs or anything having to do with employees of the city, but the entire island is invited to take a look at the neighborhood board system and to decide where and how and in what way a new system or a renewed system, I should say, a rejuvenated system of neighborhood boards emerges. I know this is not a small task. It will probably take years in which to do, but I have served on neighborhood boards for 5 years, and I haven't seen or heard any movement in this direction. So someone has to take the initiative, and so it is going to occur on August 19th at 1 o'clock. And we're going to have a grassroots meeting where people will decide where we go next. So you're welcome to come, as is any citizen on this island. And I think it will be positive. I want to say one more thing too, and that is, and I'll be very brief. You know, someone said earlier that we should concentrate on the positive, and that's all well and good. But asking the question is in itself not a negative process. In fact, it's a positive process for democracy, if you understand democracy. It is a sharpening of the saw in which we all need, because we care about the neighborhood board. Everybody in this room cares about the system. If you care about it, you understand that the saw needs to be sharpened from time to time, and a regular review of the neighborhood plan, of the neighborhood board, of the neighborhood office, the commission, is appropriate. It's not a negative process, and there's no agenda, at least that's what I'm saying, and I mean that. There is no agenda. It is what democracy requires. And so we're going to start it on August 19th. And we're going to all the board meetings to announce.
You know, that's noble in terms of what you're
Yeah.
planning to do, but one way that neighborhood boards can evaluate their successes and all the good that they've done for the community is just look back and relay to the community all the things that you've done to improve and better your community. You know, hopefully boards will have a long list of things that they've done to better their communities.
Of course.
So if you have that, then, you know, that's a real good start. So if you can lay out all the things that boards have done in their community that has been positive for the community in terms of problems that may have occurred or things that were needed in their community and how they've worked to get the things that they need. So if you have a long list of those, you know, just share all of that. And that's how you can evaluate the work of, you know, the boards.
And also, I think you have to
I mean,
remember,
that, you know, that's the positive thing that I think Commissioner Tamamoto was talking about.
and I think you also
Thank
have
you.
to remember that the neighborhood board and commission and everything that's involved with the neighborhood board is by city charter, dictated by city charter. So you might have, you know, we do these neighborhood plan reviews, but there's a system set up on how it's done. You know, you can bring this input in, you can share it with us. But
It's been 15 years.
I've been here 15 years.
Yeah.
I've been here a lot of years. Haven't I, Bill?
Oh, yeah.
Never on a neighborhood board, but I've attended more neighborhood board meetings than some neighborhood boards people, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further announcements? I don't see any hands up. So this meeting is adjourned. We will now move into the adjudicatory matter that we have